Calling the May 16, 2022 regular board meeting order at 7 p.m. Chris, please call the roll.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Here.
Karen Larson.
Here.
Jenny Norton.
Here.
Liz Sullivan.
Here.
Emily Swistek.
Here.
Lorna Turner.
Here.
Sarah Wynn.
Here.
Thank you. Agenda item 2 is opportunity for visitors to speak. Public comment is for the general public to address the board. Each person will have up to 5 minutes to provide public comment. Sir.
Timing is everything. I have a gift for the library if they want it. I got it for my sister for Christmas. I thought it was a nice, cute little sign. She's a voracious reader.
Oh.
It turned out to be this monster. But it seems appropriate for a library.
Oh.
That
was That's pretty.
Do with it what you want.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
All right.
Would you mind giving us your name?
What?
Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
No, I don't.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Richard Webb. I live over on
Richard
Portsmouth
Webb.
in the Chelsea condos.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very generous.
Nice.
Much appreciated.
And give all your librarians a raise.
Chris, did you get that in the minutes?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
Before moving on to item number 3, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the passing of Friends President Doug Cunningham last month. The Library Board of Trustees sends our condolences to Doug's family and friends and to the board of the Friends of the Lisle Public Library District. The Friends provided the following statement, which also appears on the library's website. Doug Cunningham's passion for the Lisle Library was manifest in decades of dedicated service as a member and longtime president of the Friends. He leveraged the organization as a conduit for bringing information and enjoyment to the public, most notably through concerts and book sales. He will be greatly missed. Thank you. The next agenda item is 3. Acknowledges that President Bartelli and Trustee Vice President Swistek, who substituted for Trustee Sullivan, reviewed the April billings in May, and that Treasurer Norton and Trustee Wynn will review the May billings in June. Okay. Agenda item 4 is the consent agenda. Is there a trustee who wishes to pull something from the consent agenda? If not, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
And I second.
Thank you. Discussion? Any questions? Roll call, please.
Sarah Wynn.
Aye.
Lorna Turner.
Aye.
Karen Larson.
Aye.
Jenny Norton.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Emily Swistek.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye. Thank you. Item number 5 is unfinished business. Under 5A1, we have the capital improvement project status update. Mark, would you please update the board?
No problem. I'll take this off if everyone can hear me better. Yeah, I'll run through the report. There's a few discussion items as we go through this, so if you have questions, I know most, if not all of the board was at the library over the past week or two. Feel free to chime in with questions and interrupt me as I go through. In terms of progress, most of you have seen the construction progress over the last couple of weeks. A lot of piping, electrical conduit, ductwork has all been relocated, moved, in the process of moving. For instance, even today, they took down hydronic piping, which is, I don't know if any of you recall the big insulated piping that runs throughout the building for the heating and heating, not cooling. That's all drained down, so you don't have heating, for instance, right now. Timed it well because you don't need heating. So that stuff is still going through the process right now. We also on the side have talked at a preliminary level with the signage designer and fabricator to get some different ideas, which we'll talk about a little bit later today. We also have all the furniture shop drawings in progress, which Ian Nagelhart are reviewing all those shop drawings to make sure orders are placed on time and everything else. We've also, we're looking at found cabling up in the ceiling, things that look like they've been abandoned for who knows how long, and trying to see if we can rip some of that out and what we do with it. That type of stuff is going on as well, and I know it's taking a little bit of the library staff time to figure out what is this cable, was it used for anything, does it need to be here, things like that. But I've put some pictures up here so you can see it. You have any questions from your walkthroughs you want me to address at this point? Or else I'll just go through them.
Just out of curiosity, is there any possibility of selling any copper cabling that we might find?
Typically, it's factored into the general contractor's price. In other words, whatever they demo, they factor in that it goes in their dumpster and they parse it out and get
Gotcha.
the pennies back, yeah. So at this point, I'd say no.
Okay.
Yep. Good question, though, especially nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Project schedule, we are still tracking on schedule. You'll see when we get to the change order, there are a few things that we found. Specifically, we got really lucky and put all of the existing piping that was above the ceilings happened to run right below where we want to put your new elevator. So we had to redo hydronic piping, redo sprinkler piping, redo conduit. Thankfully, when we budgeted this project, we had a above the line, so it's within the construction line item, we had a contingency for found items. So we're using that. We're not actually touching your below the line contingency at this point. But even with that work, thankfully it wasn't on what we call critical path for the schedule, because we're still on critical path for your project itself, which is good news, even with having to do some of the finagling of those pipes. So just FYI, we're still tracking there. And for instance, I've grabbed Camosi's schedule. They're supposed to be installing steel for the elevator shaft and reinforcement, which is happening this week. So we're still on target with the critical path. And this is something that Camosi updates monthly too, so we'll be able to, we always track every week. We could go through this, make sure that they're actually tracking right. If they're not, we figure out why and how we get it back on track. Upcoming activities, we'd like to finalize the signage design, and that's more to make sure that we're not worried about lead times with this at all. It's only going to be a couple months to get it, and we don't need it till the end of the project. But just in case we need to go through any paperwork processes, we want to make sure we have enough time to do that. So that's one thing we want to do. We also are planning for another abatement round. We found some additional areas to abate that were underneath carpet floors. So underneath your tech services carpet flooring, so encased by it, was another layer of flooring. That below that layer of flooring was some mastic that had to be abated.
That's a small area.
It's a very small area. It's actually, if you guys walk through, there's a little temporary office that Camosi is using.
Mm-hmm.
It's under that temporary office. So he said just continue working there, cover it. It is covered. And we'll abate it once they're ready to do the finishes the rest of the way. So we'll have that May, June-ish, just so everyone's
That
aware.
should be like a 1 day, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Is mastic glue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought so.
Yeah, and when you look at floors, you either look at, not to get too detailed, that's like yellow or black. The black stuff is typically the bad stuff. That's what this was.
So will that require any closing of the library?
No, thankfully we have the temporary walls built now. Since that
Gotcha.
temporary wall separates occupied versus unoccupied, that's why we're able to maintain the libraries
But
open.
it'll be a day where construction can't
Yeah,
happen.
correct,
Okay.
Yeah, because they can't be in that area.
correct.
Do you sand that off, or does it have to
There's-
be physically each piece removed?
There's a chemical way or a physical way, grinding it out, and we're having them do the grinding it out way because there is no warranty issue when you put a new floor on top of that. You can do a chemical way, which is quicker, a little bit cheaper, honestly. But if you ever wanted to glue down like a carpet tile on top of that, the warranty is voided because you're putting the glue on top of a chemical.
Well, that would be a hazard, wouldn't it? Isn't that?
It's accepted by, because it's all
Asbestos?
regulated. Yeah, because they actually have to, after they go through the asbestos, Midwest Environmental Consultants,
Okay.
MEC, they have to actually send in paperwork to the state that says it was abated the right way, this and that. That's why you have a consultant on that side that's a specialty. So they did give the option, do you want to do chemical or grinding, and we chose grinding, get rid of it permanently. Upcoming, the structural reinforcement that is going in this week, we anticipate up in the roof of your current building. From there, then actually next week, if not a little bit into the week after that, would be the hole being cut in your slab for the stairs and the elevator. And then right after that, they'll start shoring up all the structure around that. They'll go up 2 stories of the shoring, and then they'll blow out your exterior wall for your new south entrance. So that's all going to be starting. I would expect you'll see a hole, or at least the beginnings of a hole, by your next board meeting. So.
Big stuff.
Looking way down the line,
Mhm.
whatever, any of these actions you're taking, if they ever wanted to add in the second, the addition upstairs,
Like extend
extend
further
that,
out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
does any of this at all, would that, because if you're going up,
Well, we couldn't,
it's not a problem now, I
right,
understand.
right. So the way your building is structured is that the single-story space, which is what we're not constructing over, is a joist that goes from
Right.
north to south. So they'd basically take out that whole joist area. We're not touching that area in the structure. We are just reinforcing the two-story sided. So theoretically, whether you did it now or later, it'd be the same work. And so we're not making it harder later, but we're also not making it easier.
Thanks.
Why is it that structurally we have to shore things up? I'm not following.
We have to cut beams to put the hole in the floor. So when you.
For the elevator?
For the elevator and for the new stairs and the entry landing. So that south
Gotcha.
entry, this goes way back, but I have to remind myself sometimes, that south entry is going to be at grade level. So when people walk in, they walk in at that level, and that grade level is halfway in between your upper floor and your lower floor.
So immediately you either go there and go to the elevator?
Or up and down the
Or
stairs.
up and down? Okay,
Yep.
It's
gotcha.
hard to visualize. I remember
Yeah.
Emily and I had that
Mhm.
question on the tour. I just can't,
Yeah.
Right.
can't get it.
It'll all come together soon.
Yeah. You see the hole.
When you
Yeah.
stairs.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. The other thing, and we have a whole discussion point, so I won't belabor it right now, but the north drive aisle, they have to put in the sanitary line for that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. That's probably the biggest logistical hurdle for the library operations coming up. So I'll touch base on that later. In terms of project cost summary, you can see the update here. What I did for, this is on my page 3, point D. The building construction projected cost, I actually dropped that a little bit to switch some of those funds into additional cost for environmental remediation. So I upped the environmental remediation by $20,000 to cover whatever, we don't have costs yet, but to cover that cost of the abatement. Even with the change orders that you'll see on the next page, that all factors into the 5.5, again, above the line. It did not take it all from the 202,000 that you have below the line for contingency. We're at the point now where if we start finding more things, which we found the big stuff right now for this phase, but if we start finding more things, we might have to start digging into the 202,000, but we still have a healthy safety net at this point. And then I had heard from Director Weinstein that there were some questions about the invoices that were paid, so I added this little chart in the bottom. These are all the invoices that have been recommended for approval and payment. I think at tonight's board meeting they'd be approved, but since the last board meeting, you can see where the money's going. And MEC, I said that acronym before. Yeah, that's the environmental consultant who oversees the environmental abatement. So, any questions? Change order update. This is just what we wanted to make sure we updated the board every time we come to you with any changes to Camosi's contract. So you can see right off the bat, COR, which is change order request, is what that stands for. COR number 1 has not been approved. That is substantially for items that are required from the permit review that the village did. And not that the village is going above and beyond. These are things that need to happen, but some different ramp slopes and things like that specifically to your outside program area. So we're still looking at that before we sign off on this. We want to see how phase 1 kind of flushes out to make sure there isn't a more efficient way of doing the outdoor program area than what we currently have. What we have right now is great because it'll be a flat slab all the way across. You'll have ramps, you'll have stairs coming out of your meeting room. It's going to be really nice, but there might be a more efficient way if we get into the pickle with more found conditions. 2, 3, 4, and 5 were all different, actually, and 6 are all different trades that were found where when we took down the ceilings that were impacted by the elevator location and the new stairway location and the new entry location. So that's all the different trades you can see. It was fire protection, hydronic, which is again, that's your heating pipes that loops throughout the building. And electrical work were all, and plumbing, all had to be dealt with. So again, all above the line, but we wanted to make sure you guys saw the numbers and knew what was going on there. If you had any questions. Other things that are under review right now, we're putting in a climbing wall in the youth services area, and there's some special blocking you need to do to anchor that into the wall so it doesn't pull out when kids' weight is on it. So that's something that's under review right now. We want to make sure you're not overpaying for what that is. So we literally have them itemize out like a sheet of plywood what that costs in their backup, so it's all detailed. Also maybe changing up the drinking fountain youth services. You have a drinking fountain there right now, but I think it's a single height not for kids.
No, I think there's a dual, I think we're looking for a water fill.
Oh, is that what it is,
Yeah.
the bottle filter
Yeah.
itself? We haven't gotten costs for it yet. We honestly wasn't as high priority if it's getting the pipes out of the way, so we'll look at that next couple weeks. And I did take some pictures of the piping that we found that was problematic, but any questions here? All right. Open bid alternate discussion. The reason why I have this, we really don't need direction on any of these, especially the meeting room pieces. But two that I'll point out to your attention would be alternate 8 and 9, and those are deducts. So if you add them up, a potential deduct of just over $12,000 to the project, so you'd be able to free up that money. If the exterior stone is not painted, and if the interior stone is not painted. Now, these numbers are lower than I would have expected, just if we were asked a painter to come and do it, but where they bid it and they submitted a bid, we don't really have a negotiating point because that's how they worked out their contracts when they submitted the bid. So it still at least is a deduct to the library we could consider. Probably should have put point H next, but I'll jump into point G, exterior signage discussion. This is a mock-up of what the sign, the main marquee sign, could look like. We wanted to pass this direction by the library board to see if we're headed in the right direction. So in other words, the green would be the same green that is painted onto the building itself. Theoretically, you could either paint the stone columns or leave the stone columns. And we try to find a font color and logo color that tied in with the building architecturally as well. Does that seem to be the right direction?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Good.
Yeah?
I did have some questions. I think I asked Director Weinstein. It's really hard to see at that corner
Mhm.
because the sign is so long. And I think Tatiana mentioned that we might be taking some shrubs out, but we're not going to take the nice landscape. I mean,
Yeah, I have
unless we
already,
have to, because it doesn't, I can't see.
It's tough, right.
I agree, the priority for a sign has to be that you can see it, not just when you're right upon it. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not generally one to kill greenery, but the signage visibility has to come first.
Yeah, and the lighting
Yeah.
around it too, just to make sure that it really does light it up. Because that's the thing too, with it being dark, are the spotlights that are in the ground, right, are they gonna light it up enough at night that it'll show?
We could take a look at that. Right now, we're not planning on changing the lights, just to
Okay.
not have to rerun everything. But you do have two lights on both sides. We can make sure they're working right,
Yes.
make sure they're updated,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
I know that we talked about this, and it's probably too late now, but in order to change the size of the sign, we have to go to planning and zoning. I mean, is that after the discussion we had with planning and zoning? We certainly don't want to be holding anything up. Just a question, I mean, how difficult would that be to change?
The actual size and
Yeah,
shape.
the size.
I think either way, we're going to have a discussion with the village because we don't want to get in a situation where we did something and the village has an issue with it. So regardless, we will have a discussion. And now what we're saying right now is that the sign that we're replacing is the same size roughly.
Mhm.
And we're replacing it because it's weathered and shot.
is it though, is this 18 inches versus 24 inches? Isn't that showing the prior to the,
I think there's a border that goes around the existing one.
okay, okay,
And so we'll take a look at that to make sure it actually matches. So this might be a little bit taller.
yeah.
And I know the lettering is a little bit different because it's not Lisle Library, just block lettering going across and
And we're
both.
leaving the stone the same as on the main building,
Mhm.
whatever we.
Right. But to your original question, I don't know that it would necessarily be a problem to go and do that. I just don't know how much change the library is really wanting to make to the sign, whether you want to go through a process or not.
No, I understand.
But it's not done through Camosi, it's done through a separate signage contractor, so we'll have a separate, piece with that. So the timing could be what the timing is. In other words, you don't have to have that. It'd be great to have that sign up by the time you reopen the library and it's complete.
Right.
And we're not too late yet for that, but I also don't want to start that process in October and expect to have it done. Right. So
Is the stone pretty good around it?
there's needs to be some tuck pointing. I looked at it and it seems like some of the joints are starting to come out a little bit. So I think there's some tuck pointing. The stone itself, it doesn't have a problem. I think it's just a little bit of maintenance
Cleaned up,
essentially.
Yeah, cleaned up.
Yep.
I have no fondness for that stone where it is. I think it's great on the building. And I would think it would be nice to investigate alternatives. I personally think this sign gets lost. I think the sign is too low.
Too low.
I think that the stones on the sign don't do anything to it. I mean, I would like to see a sign that more closely matches that north entrance feel.
Something wrapped in wood.
Exactly. Bring out the wood from the north entrance
Could
into
they-
this sign.
Couldn't they wrap the posts in wood? I mean, is that a considerable expense? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't
Like,
know, I don't know
you
that
know
it's.
how people do it like in interiors and stuff?
Right. I think my concern wouldn't be so much, is it possible to do it? It'd be more, does it get too bulky if we start adding on top
More
of the stone?
Mhm.
I think if you're going to that step, hearing this, yeah, I want to go with general consensus of the board, but hearing this, what I could do is have a conversation with the village and suggest this is, kind of plan A, but there's also this inkling or this idea that maybe a plan B would do something a little bit different, put in a new foundation. I'd be more worried about the foundations. Like if I'm trying to change the size or how this thing is anchored in, then I'm starting to get into, multiples of thousands of dollars to dig out, put in new and everything else. But I can have that conversation to see what their feedback is, the village staff, and come back to the next board meeting with that information in hand.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, to your point, is it that it's too kind of a narrow sign? Would you be open to something higher? I don't know if that changes planning and zoning or visiting them or anything, but that maybe could be framed or incorporate some elements from the north-south entrances.
I think the pillars are a little overpowering.
I'm sorry.
I think the pillars are a little overpowering.
Is that sign angled? Or is
Yes.
that just straight on the corner?
I think that's just
think it's
in reality, I think it's straight.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and if
Yeah.
it was
think
angled,
so.
you could see it coming down Kingston.
I thought you meant like incorrectly angled. No, it is straight.
No, no,
You were
no,
right. It is
no,
straight.
no,
Yep.
I've been by it so many
Yeah.
times, we all have, and I can't remember now.
Yeah.
Is it straight?
It is straight.
But it is,
I think
and
it
that,
is.
and I think that in itself is part of the problem.
Just the visibility of it is so hard.
Yeah.
And
And
that's why I was
there's-
asking about the lighting. I just feel like it's just so like nondescript and so it doesn't stand out, like it doesn't stand out. It doesn't.
And you also have an electrical pole right there too, which doesn't help either.
If we took, the concept of greenfield, it means you start with nothing. I would like to see us consider, like, what would be the optimal sign? This is what we have today. If we had nothing there, what would be the optimal?
So if we I'm just gonna use very general terms, Mark. If we just sliced off the stone pillars at the base, but continued to use the foundation they're in and built up from them larger, would that require, we wouldn't have to pour a new foundation, or do you have to still pour a new foundation?
Well, I don't know until you take the stone down, because I don't know if there's a post that goes into the ground, which I would assume there is. So if you have that post, that might, until you open it up, you don't know. It's like opening a can of worms. It's like, it could be great, and you just put something on top of it and call it a day. And it could be, this whole thing's gonna come out. It's like the mailbox post, I know mine at least, you put it in there, it's good for a number of years, and all of a sudden you start getting cracking and everything else, and if you just go to take it out, it's just shot.
But if you're approaching front, this is the only way I have very good visually. This way, and you're coming down Kingston, is that sign going like this? Or is it this way?
It's that way.
It's straight on.
parallel
It's-
to Front Street.
Yeah.
Okay, and that,
Right.
to me, that just defeats the whole, my opinion.
Would you
How
put
does
an
anyone
angle
else?
out to the corner?
Well,
Ooh, then you don't see it on either way until you're right
Right
there on
there.
the corner. Yeah.
if you're clearing some of the landscaping,
Mhm.
as we mentioned, and you could see it approaching and even coming south on Kingston when you come around the curve. Well,
Yeah.
no, then it would be,
That's not where
It'd be the
my
wrong way.
eyes are, though. I mean, I actually, I don't know, when I'm driving, first of all, for the first 20 years I lived here, I didn't know that they had a sign. Okay, I'm just being honest, okay? When I got on the board, then somebody told me that we did have a sign, so I looked for it. So I'm just being honest here. It's like, I came
You didn't know about
here.
Garden Gate either, did you?
Well, I didn't know about Garden Gate either, and, you know, so I don't look low for signs. My eyes are a little bit higher. I don't look low.
well, I think it's obvious we have some real concerns,
Concerns, right.
so.
So if nothing can be done this direct in terms of placement, size, structure, greenfield, then this seems to be headed in the right direction at least. But if not, if we can do something better, the library board at least entertain doing better, to get that information.
Well, and the other question too is, you know how we have signs by the entrances, especially off of Kingston?
Mhm.
There's those big signs that say entrance, you know, like all
Yep.
that stuff there. Are we going to have new signs at the Kingston entrance and at the Front Street entrance? Like, what are those gonna look
Yep.
like?
We are refacing those signs, so there's a sign that is at the Kingston entrance, same shape, but it'll be redone. That'll actually have like an arrow, we're saying, pointed in for drive up window, I think is what it says.
Curbs, the, drive up, service
So,
window.
yeah, service window, so there'll be an arrow there with the logo, Lisle Library.
Okay.
We'll also, at the new north main lot, you have an exit sign and an entry sign, so you'll have that with a little logo next to it as well,
Okay.
replacing existing signs.
Okay.
And we're trying to replace existing where we can and not have to go through the
Yeah.
paperwork side of things.
Well, and the biggest concern for me, I know I keep saying this, but for this main sign at the corner is visibility. I mean, just like Liz was saying, for 20 years, she didn't know it was there. I mean, I remember hearing about it at a meeting and then going and looking for it, because I was like, wait, where is this sign? Why haven't I seen it? You know, same thing. And I don't know if it's because it got, you know, mixed in with all the trees and shrubs and stuff, or if it's just because it's nondescript. I don't know, but I never felt like it really stood out.
Just
And I-
kind of blends in.
Yeah, and I feel like if we're gonna be
Yeah,
spending
it's the
money to
color.
better it, it
blends
needs to
in.
be visible.
Yep. I think you guys are hitting something too, it's the color, because the color is the wood color, it matches all the sticks and twigs and everything else behind
Yeah,
it, so it
right.
blends right in. Whereas at least this, and I don't know that green is gonna really pop out a whole bunch, but it'll pop up more, so it's just a monotone green, not a natural green.
To me, it looks like you bought a new sign and you stuck it on something old.
Yep,
Okay, and what do? We put a new sign, I mean, that's what we did. We stuck it on something old. I mean, and the other thing is, the
Yeah.
only time, I mean, how many of us drive and look down?
If you're at that level, I mean, you're sitting in your car, it is, the problem is, it's right for me, at my height in my car, it's right in my sight line. Yeah, it literally is, it's either, you don't want it lower, but I mean,
But
Well, and you don't
even-
want it higher because of visibility. If you're coming up Front Street and then you're gonna head north on Kingston, you don't want it to block your visibility as you're trying to turn.
For other
For
cars.
cars, for cars.
Well, what if we did this? What if we just asked, is there any way we could ask our architect to propose something without them charging us, since they are?
It'd be tough, because this wasn't included in their contract for this piece. I'd be more, we're gonna pay someone regardless. You're basically paying roughly $100 an hour for the graphic designer to do this. They spent like 3-4 hours total and gave up designs for all of the signs we're having look at, not just this one. So it's gonna be a couple hours to have them do it, it's a couple $100. I'd rather push it that way and then send it to the architect saying, this is what we're looking at doing, do you have any objection? Because I wouldn't expect a bill coming from that type of discussion.
Yeah.
Let me have a discussion with the village, see what the options are, see what hurdles we have to go through. And then if, I have no problem going and asking the architects, is it gonna cost a couple $100 for them to do this, or, 4 hours or something to come up with the design? And we can bring those options to the board.
And we're not at a deadline point right now
No.
regarding this, so we have a little time
Yeah.
to come back and show you something different.
Yeah,
If
I-
we can come back with something.
Yeah, definitely, because I did not want signage to be on the critical path, so we're trying to come out early on this one.
Because the other thing we're overcoming is we're overcoming the fact that our entrances are gonna be north and south, and all we have on the side that the sign is gonna be, bushes. So it's not like, a building that has windows welcoming you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So we're overcoming a lot anyway. So, I think our sign has to overcome some issues. And to me, frankly, this sign does not. This sign doesn't help overcome that situation.
Right. Okay. Good feedback. Anything else?
I'm just gonna throw a thought out there, because it's been in my head, and I just keep looking and about visibility and stuff, and I know it's probably just not, it's not gonna happen. I almost feel like you have to have a sign facing this way and a sign on the other end facing that way. It's almost like it's a building. Like triangular? Yes, triangulate, so you can, there would be one sign like over here, pointing on to Kingston, but then one over here, so people coming from both sides can see it. It almost feels like it should, the way the building is set on the street with the visibility, it almost feels like it needs two signs, so then but that's just a thought
Yep.
in my head
No,
that I
it's
was thinking. If there isn't a possibility, but that's all.
Right.
I'm like,
Mark, would we have the same problem to add two signs versus changing?
I think
Same.
so. That's what, it's gonna be the same conversation I have, yeah. I'm gonna bring up all those variables,
Okay.
yeah.
yeah, I think the approach is, in my mind, it's, we're sending the feedback to Mark that visibility is paramount. And then we're not the architects, we're not the GC. You guys talk about it, come up with your best ideas, and put some general price tags to it too, before we start getting into ideas
Right.
about 3 angles, 50 heights and the rest, and how much chopping of landscaping as well
Right.
in that, and any other encumbrances like going back to the village for
Right.
more permission, but, so all that, just, yeah, we can, I think we've got consensus on the big point, and then
Yeah.
you guys go back to the kitchen and
Right.
cook something up.
This will
Let us
be
know.
Plan B,
Yeah.
if need be.
I
But-
do, go ahead.
Sorry,
Yep.
not related to signage, if you wanted to talk more
Oh,
about the signage,
yes.
but just still on this page, I just wanted to ask a clarification question.
Just one more question about signage. If you're coming east on Division, okay, you've gone north on Main,
Mhm.
you're turning east or right on Division.
Oh, yep, okay.
Okay. You're south, when you turn east on Division, you're not lined up with this entrance. You actually come out south of the entrance.
Correct.
Okay. So you have to turn north on Kingston.
Mhm.
What do you see that tells you that you're at the library?
There
Is
is
there a
that
sign?
one
Sign,
sign
yeah.
that's there.
There's a sign.
Yep.
There's a
Okay.
sign.
And that one would be refaced.
Okay,
That was one of the ones I was asking about.
okay,
It's
great.
got a logo that
Mhm.
Director Weinstein's pointed out a couple times, it's just faded beyond belief.
Yeah,
so it's-
faded.
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's okay, well, I'll now volley back to you to say that when I first moved to Lisle, I failed the find the library on the first try test, so, to your credit. Yeah, so I think we're all on the same page there. Just wanted you to just go one layer deeper on the explanation for the reasons why the dollar amounts of those painting deductions are, I heard it and it didn't quite percolate.
So when we go out to bid, we put all the alternates on the table and said you have to fill in numbers for each one of these. Camosi came in, and actually the majority, for some reason, of the vendors, I was surprised, used almost the same dollar amounts, or at least close to, for the exterior painting deduct.
And what did we originally think it was going
It was gonna be, I don't have the exact number, but it was
to estimate?
at least probably $20,000 to $30,000 is what I thought it would be, because you have scaffolding, and it might even been more than that. You have scaffolding, you have to do the clean work, the prep work, there's work involved with getting that right. So I don't know, I couldn't tell you right now if the original number that was in their base number had accommodated for all that prep work that we would have forced them to do anyways, or not. But regardless, when you have the bid and you have multiple contractors submit the numbers, you're basically held to that number if you're just gonna pull it out without pulling it out and pulling out something else. In other words, changing the scope further from what they bid on. So when they bid it and they said, okay, it's gonna be $5 to paint the whole building, and we'll give you $1 back, not to the exterior, and they put it in the public bid sheets. If you're gonna pull it out, you pull out what they put in their public bid sheets. So that's,
I understand.
yeah, so we'll take a look at it and make sure that there isn't something else they should pull out that they might have included in their base. Honestly, they could have been stuck to the way that if they didn't include, say, some of the prep work that we would have required them to do, they would have been stuck footing the bill that way too. So it kind of cuts both ways.
Yeah, so it wouldn't, it's not that they would have, but it's not in their best interest to have lowballed that.
No, yeah, because they have to assume, since it's base that they included, they have to assume they're doing it.
Right.
So if they're gonna assume they're doing it, they better have included a good number for it.
Sure.
Yeah, so it would have been nice to pull it a little bit more. And we'll double check it to make sure if there's anything we can do, but I don't expect it. So with that segue, if that's
Sure.
good enough for right now.
Definitely.
Exterior painting discussion, and you don't see too much, well, you do see the stone, top left picture. Director Weinstein's staff did a good job of painting. We got an extra gallon of paint. I think she, suffered the bees and wasps and everything else
Yes,
out there.
that was fun.
But we got a bigger swatch to look at. I think everyone took a look at it. I don't know if these pictures do justice going out there and actually seeing it for yourself. Are we okay with that color number one? That is what we bought from the contractor, and the architects, feel it works. Didn't hear any objection. And so let's answer that question, and also, since we're looking at it, the painting of the stone. I did talk to Don about the painting, and they said it could go either way. Whether you paint it or don't paint it. If you don't paint it, it looks more natural. It is the way it is, and it's much less of a maintenance issue down the road. If you do paint it, it kind of gets monotone in their opinion and starts going away a little bit more, but it becomes a maintenance issue, and it's now all monotone. So really depends
We
on
need a
the board.
consensus opinion.
Right.
On what we like, first with the paint and then the stone.
Can we power wash part of it? See
Will.
what it'll look like?
We did, and actually we cleaned it with chemical stones and way on the, I did pictures a number of months ago.
On the north side or south
On
side?
the
No,
far-
This was a sample space.
Yeah, we did like a
Yeah.
4 foot tall by 1 to 2 foot wide swatch of 4 different chemical cleaners with the power washer, and it barely does a thing. I mean, you really can't tell much difference. It cleans it, right? It cleans where you look at some of the stone and it's not showing up too much here, where it looks like there's like a moss growing on it, it's kind of dark consistently. It did clean that off. But in terms of the actual stone itself, that's in the color of the stone. You really can't clean that.
But we are gonna clean the stone.
We are going to clean the stone, yes.
All
Yep.
around, yeah.
Yep.
To take any algae, moss stuff
Yep.
off and anything else.
We're gonna do a base cleaning, and there was like a special chemical cleaning, alternate 7, that was $9,000 to do like another step up if we wanted to do that. And we'll take a look at that, whether it's worth it or not. Regardless, we're getting a base cleaning though throughout the whole thing.
I assume it's environmentally friendly to our landscape.
It is, that was actually one of the big concerns, and we selected a cleaner.
I did that once.
Oh, did you really? Oh, no. I could see it happening though, yes. The good stuff. So I don't know who wants to start or whatever else, but are we good on the paint? You can answer that question first.
I like the paint. I
Great.
think it looks great, and especially with the natural stone. I mean, I don't think painting the stone, especially if it's gonna turn monotone, like you don't want that. And it's just that natural with the, it doesn't hide any of the landscaping. It's, you still see that, it's the building, and then in front of it's the beautiful landscape. But I feel like, in my opinion, I just think it's great against that natural stone.
Jenny, why don't we go this way, and then we'll all have a little.
Yes, green, no stone. Done.
Take the credit.
I like the natural stone.
Okay.
I'm good with the green, I really like that. I'm not 100% on the stone, but then there's also the issue of like, you do it, you can't go back, and so I feel like with that on my brain, then the natural stone makes more sense, because I don't want to be in for that commitment of we've ruined the stone, you know?
Because we would come back to you.
I know.
Yeah, ruin the stone.
Emily, you were the deciding vote.
We'll be in a minute. Karen.
The green and the natural stone, no paint.
Same.
Same.
I didn't say green, but I.
Green, all right, so we have consensus, all right, we can pull that out of the agenda for the contractors, that's good.
Good.
Green, no paint.
Before we start your next item, just on your page 2, our page 30, upcoming activities. The very last point, the North Drive aisle sanitary line connection, does that feed in to what's already the library sanitary? It's not going out into the village's sewer like a home, your sanitary line?
No, it's not a whole new.
It's not a whole new one? It's-
Nope.
Okay.
So actually, to answer your question though, you can go to page
Maybe,
7, not the 11 by 17 I did today, and you can barely see it, but there is a yellow line that goes from what is your meeting room.
from here?
Yep, that one. You can, so right
Oh,
at
there's
the
no
right.
way, I can't see.
I can't.
At the
I believe you.
right, yeah, at the right-hand side of that little red L, the
Okay.
very far right side of it, there is a line that goes from the street to your existing building. So we are tying into, and that's your pipe, we are tying into that pipe.
Okay, great.
And that is the pipe that we cambered a couple months back. So we didn't camber the city's sewer, we cambered your line that connects into it.
Okay.
And you can see the red line though, that is all new sanitary piping. It's coming from your future family restrooms, which that plumbing's already, I don't know if when you were at the library to see, but that piping's already been started to be put in, it's all roughed in already. But that comes out underground underneath your new main entrance, and then it comes out and ties in at the north drive aisle. Problem is, we were originally told that they could plate over that at the end of their workday. They'd start early and they'd plate over it, so we might have a late start day, and you'd be able to drive over it every day while the hole's there. Problem is, they've got to dig down 20 feet because of the elevation change. And when you go down 20 feet, you have to get a wider and wider and wider hole, and they're saying we can't keep it open with just plating because it's too big of a hole, 20 feet deep. So that being the case, they want to, and they're saying it's about a week of work to do that. Between cutting it open, they'll have to have the city come out and inspect it, they've got to tie and coordinate all those dates together, so I think it's a week. With that being the case, I provided the 11 by 17 paper for everyone. We're looking at how do we keep the library open for that week, so you don't just have people running into each other, right, when they're trying to get in, out, and around. So the one thought we had, and this is all up for discussion.
This is a lot of conversation between Mark and myself, because
Yes.
I was very concerned about any way we would do this, because I didn't want to be closed, and then I did want to be closed if it was for a day or two, but now that it's a week, we had to find some other way. So I think this is the culmination of everything we've
Yeah.
discussed
Right.
over many hours. How do we do this safely?
So I know there's a couple different colors on here. The orange lines, I'm sorry my printer isn't great between orange and red, but the orange lines are the construction fencing lines and the area of work. What we're proposing to do is there's a note that's on the right that says area fenced off to create a dead end. That would be where we cut off the north drive aisle, so public couldn't get any further there. There is a purple-pink line that's dashed in your south parking lot. And there's an arrow that goes to it that says traffic management company to provide barricades/cones to create a divider to manage traffic. And the whole idea here is to keep people from running into each other too much, and to not have to restripe your lot for a week of time and then restripe it again, is you'd actually have a drive aisle, you drive on the right-hand side over the parking spaces to get around, and then you'd have a return that's going out of the building on the typical drive aisle. That would be, again, on their right-hand side, so you've in and out and around. You still have it, and you can see the double-sided arrows, a few areas where it's two-way traffic. Getting into the library lot, getting at the current stop sign, which theoretically actually is wide enough for two cars to slide by each other, but you still have that stop sign, kind of a weird bottleneck, and then at both dead ends. Now, thankfully, we do have a turnaround that is existing on the south lot. So everyone knows that south lot fencing, we had to mostly open that up for parking because they had rebar in there. They said, oh, we got rebar in there. The rebar was taking up like 4 parking spots. So they just fenced around that rebar and they're making do. So that's why we're still having a construction fence for the rebar, and some other miscellaneous stuff comes in here. They're in a demo out the concrete floor. That demo is probably going to go in that lot and be away, but we can still use that turnaround then for this week time period. We're expecting this work to happen before the next board meeting, so that's why we wanted to make sure we brought this to you, so you'd at least have some buy-in and voice your opinion on how hard this is.
I think it's doable, but I think, you know, you guys will hopefully think of everything you can do to maximize the safety aspect of this, including, I would even say moving programming out of this week so that you don't have an influx of people during that week. You know, you don't want to discourage people, but you can move it to a different time, I guess. And then be conscientious about employee parking and figuring out if there's a way to really, like, I think my biggest concern on the flow is the northeast corner dead end, because there's no turnaround there, and it's not, you know, that two-way is gonna, looks really the narrowest, and I'd almost say either block that off or make that employees only or something, so that that's people that are there first and last. That was my thought there. I think that's all I have for thoughts. But the rest I leave up to you guys, because of course you care about those things too.
So where would the employees park?
So we did think that there would be some parking left to the left of the south fence line where, you know, you have your new south entry coming in,
Yeah.
and the fence ends short of the whole west side. We'd think we'd put some parking in there potentially. That's staff parking, so they're only theoretically coming in and out once during the day. So it can be a little bit more controlled. And maybe the far, and I'll defer to you, but maybe the far southeast corner of the slot.
I'm still looking at possibly, speaking to St. Joan.
Yeah.
Or, even, and I forgot the name of it, Swib or whatever.
Swibco?
On the opposite, across the street.
Okay.
I prefer that.
That'd be, yeah.
So that we this whole south lot empty.
Okay.
I don't want
nice.
anyone thinking that any of the slots are parking.
Yeah. The contractors did say they do believe that they're going to have that south fence line because they're going to be punching holes through that elevation during this time period. But if by some chance they're not punching those holes at that time, then they'll shorten up the fencing as much as they can to even open up some of that area for more space to drive through.
My biggest concern is safety, and when they say traffic management company to provide barricades, are we thinking the kind of barricades, you know, that are actually where you cannot drive through them?
It'd most likely be just like the horses, you'd call it, you know, they're orange, they could either be the ones that are like 3 feet wide with the reflector on the top, or the ones that are linear going across. There are actual traffic management companies that contractors will sub out to. Obviously, we've not bought this out. It would be a change order to Camosi to do this, but I've advised that they do look at bringing in a traffic management company with all of that equipment to make sure it's not like the library's just going and buying some 2-foot cones and putting them out there. Let's get reflectors. Let's get this thing done the right way.
When is this happening again?
As of our Tuesday meeting, it was going to happen within the next month of that, so 3 to 4 weeks of then. So it could be. And we told them they absolutely had to give us. We were pushing for 2 weeks. They're going back and forth on timing. They will give us at least 1 full week advance notice of the exact date it's going to start.
Because at the beginning of your hatched line in the magenta color,
Mm-hmm.
I would want a sign right there saying incoming, go to the right.
Mm-hmm.
So people know, go this way.
Yep.
And maybe another sign. And I don't know if we do that, do we
They would
purchase
do that.
They
Well,
do that?
I would anticipate the traffic management company would have some sort of sign that would accomplish what you're looking to do there.
Okay.
What, you know,
Directionals.
Yeah.
I need some directionals.
Right. Something that says go here, don't go there.
Mhm.
You know, kind of like when you're going, if you look at the wrong side of an entrance onto an on-ramp, where it says, you know, do not enter wrong way or whatever else. So it's almost like you need a wrong way sign on one side and a right way sign on the other side.
I think it would be helpful too to also have a slow sign in both directions, you know, just so people slow.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, there have been, and I don't remember where this is, but there are places where, you know, the left turn is actually kind of like not marked, but they've put vertical barriers off because somebody must be having head-ons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's 2 places. It doesn't matter where it is, but there is a potential for confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And it bothers, I get worried when you say that it might be horses, separating that.
Mhm.
It would be nice if it were something a little bit more stable. And what I'm thinking is, you know, like those round barrels that are full of sand.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Something that, you know, it's something you can't look through. It's something that visually you see that it's not airy.
Mhm.
It's physically dense.
They had like almost this plastic, like they're almost like triangle horses and they're full of sand too, like orange things too.
I can't picture those, but yeah, I'm sure there is.
Because I would worry about the barrels because of how big they would be. They would take up more of the room on
Good
either
point.
side. That's the only thing that I would worry about, I guess. But I like that there does need to be something bigger or something
Physical.
On this
Yeah.
diagram, though, it says the book drop temporarily relocated to temporary divider. So think about how wide the book drop is. If that's gonna be in
Yeah.
that middle section too, that's still gonna be, like, I think those barrels aren't as wide as the book drop.
Well, all the McDonald's all have 2 drive-throughs, and they've got cylindrical posts. If you ever pay attention to them, every 5 or 6 feet. Not a barrel, it's a cylindrical post.
The difference, though, is traffic is going the same direction.
But I'm talking about the post itself. If you put a post in rather than a barrel.
Basically have enough of them so
Right.
it like
Yeah.
really reads as a line. Well,
I
it's
mean,
a
you
barrel
clearly
or
know where
a
to
thinner
go
or
to
something, but
McDonald's
more
to
ink,
get
you
to your
know,
lane.
solid.
Just
like I
something
said,
that's not gonna
enough.
tip over though, like, if it's a wooden horse, like those Camosi horses, those can tip over
Right.
in a hard wind or whatever, you
Right.
know? You don't want that.
Plastic, the round tubes that you screw into the ground, I mean, I know it may damage the asphalt,
Mhm.
but that can be patched. I mean, they have those, and you can, if it happened, you could drive over those and not
Right.
damage your car.
Right,
But you know you'd hear the ba 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 all the way.
right.
Um,
I think what I'd do is, as long as we're okay with this general direction, I'm gonna leave it to the professionals, being the traffic management company,
Yeah.
and say, you guys tell us what is gonna be the best way to do
Right.
what we're doing. And they might even tweak this a little bit to make it suit, but that's their job day in, day out, and they typically do it, you know, they're down in the city, I know I've used them before, you know, shutting down roads for steel lifts and things like that downtown. We'll have Camosi call them, really, because I want this to be handled by the general contractor. It's their logistics, their means and methods, but I want them to use this company, even if it's a change order to the library, to handle it the right way. Let's do it that way.
Will we get will I be able to see this before, so I can?
We'll have them review it with you, yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
in case I want more signage or something else,
Right.
okay.
Especially with the book drop going there too. I just keep thinking about how deep that
Mhm.
is. Like, that's gonna impact.
Yeah, I think, and just so you're all aware, we did talk about the book drop a lot. The reason why we put it there is that it's on the driver's side somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and so you don't have a weird crossover.
And then it acts as a divider as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was the library's opinion that it's so well used that it's needed, because obviously you're gonna have people looking for the book drop. If you
Yeah.
don't have it
Mhm.
somewhere that's just, it's right in the middle of where they're driving anyways.
Mhm.
This will hit them kind of in the face as
Yeah,
they're
we
going through.
can't not have a book drop there for a whole week, there's no way. So.
As you said, we'll leave it to the experts.
Yep, all right, so as long as we're okay with this, we'll plan to leave the library open. The other option honestly was to, you know, close the library for a bit, but I don't think anyone wants to close the library for a week for
Not for that
a
long.
20-foot hole. Yep. So, all right,
Okay.
I think that was it.
Is that your whole thing?
That wasn't too bad, all
All
right.
right.
Any questions, concerns, issues?
As you covered.
If you have concerns, then you will come back with answers.
Yes, definitely.
Can you do me a favor?
Mhm.
My eyes are not so great. Can you read to me what's in that, orange, like, box?
That's not intended for this write-up. This is, the background of this is the phasing plan that Shane Nagel Hartry put together. So all it says is contractor to provide a temporary phase 1 exit, see additional notes on sheet, something or another, I can't read.
Okay.
And
I
not related to my
It's an old
markup.
note.
Yeah, it's just an old note I didn't take off, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a temporary entrance there if you want. That's actually your fire escape. They built in a temporary exit with a little wood platform basically that goes out to
Okay,
for egress.
I just
Yep. So they
thought it
followed the
was my
direction, I know
eye.
that much.
Okay.
It looks like it, yes.
As the pool.
Ooh, nice. Well, you'll have a pit in a little bit, so yeah, fill that up. You will, elevator pit. They're gonna be, yeah, they'll be doing that next.
Permanent dump tank.
Ooh.
We've had those.
Yeah. Well, that's what we want, fingers crossed, we don't find any water when we go down there. We want no water. That's
No, you won't.
no water, dry.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep, thank
Thanks,
you.
Mark.
All right,
Thank you.
take care, everyone.
Move on to agenda item number 6, committee reports. Finance?
We did have a meeting April 25th to go through the working budget. We got a lot of our questions answered as a result of the meeting and the questions that we had asked. As Mark pointed out on page 3 of the report, he had broken out the fees for each of the, there was one item that had been collapsed previously. It's got it broken out between Camosi, MEC, CCS International, things of that sort. So I think we'll work with it for a couple months, see if it works, or if and maybe we'll get to the point where we won't even need it, and we'll just forget about it then.
Great.
But that was the result. I think you all got an email from Tatiana on April 29th explaining what they were going to do for us. Yeah, well,
Thank you. Any questions for Lorna? Personnel and policy?
Our next meeting is Thursday, June 2nd at 5:30 PM. So we'll have more to report after that.
Thank you. Physical plan? Got enough going on with that, right? Advocacy and outreach? Oh, thank you. Staff reports.
Okay, I'm going to begin with some very positive news. The library now has a donation button on its website, and we actually had our very first online donation last week, just a couple of days after our launch, and we haven't even really advertised it yet, so that was fun. The button itself goes to a page that describes what we are currently fundraising for, which is the Lisle. And in the future, we can change that informational page to anything we want it to be. It could be a general donation page, or, you know, if we went forward with another fundraiser, that could go there. I do have an update on the Lisle. We are at $11,950. We have, I think I've mentioned that the DuPage Arts Foundation has pledged $2,500 once we get to a certain amount. And that certain amount would be about $550 right now. So if we make $550,
did you get the Women's Club donation?
we did.
Okay.
And that's where we're at with the $11,950. So yes, the Lisle Women's Club did donate $500 towards our effort. And just today, I received a phone call from the Lisle Community Service Corporation. So they are considering donation, not a donation. They are considering working with the Friends for the Friends to issue us a donation. So they're actually having a meeting tonight to discuss that. So we are getting very close. So we're right now, without a grant from DuPage Arts Foundation and without Lisle Service Corporation, we are at 80%. So I think we've done a great job fundraising for our Lisle. Moving on. On April 27th, I attended the annual Joint Review Board, or TIF, meeting at Village Hall. We had a meeting about 6 months ago, but this one was to make up for some COVID-related delays. And basically, the meeting repeated what we did 6 months ago. However, the mayor did appoint a new public member at this meeting. There were some more questions about each of the TIFs, but it was pretty general, wouldn't you say,
Yes.
President Bartoli?
I would like to mention the slides that were presented at the previous meeting.
The slides?
The slides on TIF, what a TIF is. Did you remember that, something on the TIF, the organization?
Is it McKenna?
Yes,
Kane McKenna.
Kane McKenna. There's a link to that, and I found it really educated me. If anyone's interested, boring stuff.
No, that's the first time I understood TIF.
Me
Yeah.
too.
With the
That's
bucket,
the only way
yes.
I understood it.
It's the only time.
By the PowerPoint, but anyway. so-
Yeah, they didn't have that this time. It was, again,
No.
just a repeat, basically.
But I asked Eric for the link and he provided it.
That's nice.
Yeah. Nice to refer to.
Okay. And then on to other exciting news, per patron and trustee inquiry. The Museum Adventure Pass Program vendor has agreed to allow the library to acquire more passes for our patrons with a minimal increase in our participation fee. So very happy that we have doubled our amount of passes for our patrons. And this program information can be found under the Programs tab on the library's website under Community Pass Programs. And then moving on to renovation.
I have a question about that then.
Sorry?
So if I get a pass and I use it the next day, then the following day, does that pass become available again? Or
No.
it's flagged out for the whole 7 days?
It's 7 days, and the vendor is not a big company.
Okay.
It's a small kind of mom and pop organization according to the circulation director who works with this vendor. So they have it on a certain software platform where it's
Okay.
a 7-day
Okay.
kind of hold.
So if you passed it, if you used it, can you pass it to someone else?
No.
It has your name on it,
Yeah.
and, okay. Well, that's why it's good for 7 days, but you really can only use it.
But yeah, I mean, it was
Yeah.
physical, you could turn it back in and
Yes,
say, I'm
right.
done. You can turn it into somebody else.
Yeah.
Which
It's
I
not
think
like a
is-
book,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay. But good news, we have more for our patrons. And then moving on to renovation, last month Beth and I met with our landscaper to talk about the corner of Front Street in Kingston. We just talked about that. And I've met with the signage consultant regarding our sign. And we do want to improve visibility here because we will, regardless of what the sign looks like, it will be a new sign for us. So we are going to be cutting back some of the shrubbery. We're going to keep the good trees, all the nicely shaped trees and such. But this is not just about the sign. It's about seeing our building too. Because when you come up on Front Street, when you come down Kingston, you really don't see our building very well. And there are some dead trees along Kingston. We're not attacking that right away yet. We still have some time. But the corner of Front Street in Kingston, we're going to cut back some of the shrubs. We're going to take out the dead stuff, the damaged stuff. And we will be replacing the foliage with some evergreens. So some smaller dwarf evergreens. We can put lights on it during the holiday season, things like that. But we want them to kind of stay dwarf, so we have some bushes that have just really extended. Some are hitting the wires. We're gonna take those out and then replace with some evergreens. So this should happen sometime in early June. And it should take about 2 days just for that corner work. And then, rounding out the renovation section in my report, we had our trustee tours over a 4-day period. Trustees and groups of no more than 2 received the tours of the construction areas. Pat Barton, our supervisor, walked us through. He outlined the new entrances, the play areas, the elevator, and we've got some nice photos in the packet. And then we toured the paint swatch out there. And I do think the color really complements the stone and does not compete with the landscaping, so I was happy about that. And then just lastly, this did not appear in my report, but you all received an email about the Memorial Day Parade. Just wanted to mention that unfortunately, we weren't included in the event committee, even though last year I asked us to be included in the event committee. We did not appear on their flyer. So if you are interested in participating in this, you can let me know and then I can let them know. I would like us to be part of the committee one of these years, so I will connect with whomever is in charge of that to get us on the flyer.
Tatiana, who is in charge of the event flyer?
Is it
Putting it
John?
together.
What's his name?
Well,
The VFW?
I received an email from a staffer at the Park District. However, I'm not sure who actually creates the committee. But, I mean, almost every government entity is on this committee outside of the library. That's why last year I asked, like, can we? And I can't remember who emailed me back and said, sure, we will include you. But we were just asked if we wanted to be in it.
Well, there's a certain somebody who's.
Yeah, so we can connect.
We have a
that
connection,
someday.
don't we?
Anyway, I just wanted to make mention of that. And that's my report.
Do you
Is it
want to
the
see a
same-
show of hands? I mean,
But
I'm
is
sorry.
it the same committee that does the 4th of July parade too?
No.
Is
no.
that something separate?
That is
different group?
the village reaches out about of July.
4th.
This time we heard from the Park District, so.
Okay.
And I'm not sure there's a committee for the 4th of July parade. It's more, the village reaches out and asks all the intergovernmental entities if they want to participate, and then we say yes.
Will
Yeah.
the library, we can still participate,
In what?
the Memorial Day?
Well, I would like to know if someone wants to, you let me know, and then I will let the Park District know.
Is this
You don't have to say yes right
walking
now.
or
You
riding?
can walk, you
It's
can
walking.
drive, and I believe there's kind of a 3-point.
It's walking, and it's not very, it's
You
not
can
very far.
drive.
Oh, you've got a car.
Yes.
Yeah. I've done it where I've driven to and I've walked, holding signs for whatever, you know.
Is it kind of the same route as the 4th of July parade?
It doesn't go through the Park District. I think it ends up over at the cemetery, does it not? And they do a ceremony at the
It's
cemetery.
the same,
Yeah.
You had it in your email.
yes, it's the
Right.
same
Right.
walk as the 4th of
4th of
July. You're
July.
starting at the school,
School.
you're going down Main Street, you end up at the memorial statue, and then you go to the cemetery.
Right.
I'm not sure you have to do all of them, but that's kind of the route.
Mhm.
And it's in the email.
Is anyone interested?
If you are, you can email me later. You don't have to answer right now.
What did we do last year? Did we,
We did not. We have historically not participated in the Memorial Day parade. We've always done July 4th.
okay, maybe it was the 4th I'm remembering.
We always do the 4th.
People were throwing stuff at Marjorie?
This one is a somber event. There's
No,
no
have a
throwing,
hard
there's no waving, it's more
No.
just
Hoopla.
procession.
There's no
Okay.
candy throwing, there's nothing.
Will
It's
the
just, it
library
is a somber
be
memorial.
represented, Staff,
Staff is not,
okay. then-
but if
Fair
trustees
answer,
would like
just
to,
asking,
yeah,
okay.
and that's my report.
Okay.
Thank you. Assistant Director?
So, just wanted to mention that we have completed our fire safety testing for the year. It's annual, and the components of it are they check our fire extinguishers, the fire alarms, the backflow system, the elevator safety equipment is checked, their sprinklers and the smoke detectors. And that was various visits from the testing technicians from Chicago Metro Fire arranges for all of it, and they don't come on one day, it's multiple days. And there were no problems detected, and they did walk through the construction area, and they were just kind of looking at the sprinkler system. And just, they said there's no problems in the building, so that was all good news. And Monaco Mechanical went through the spring testing, and they got the, air conditioners were started up. And there was one small problem with what they call a contact door, and they fixed that in a couple days. And last week, the air conditioning was running, and went through a good test, and it was very cool. And really, that's all the updates.
I have a question about, what is a 3M Ultra Safety and Security Window Film? The last paragraph under facility?
Well, that was
I can
through
speak to
some,
that since I
go
worked-
ahead, so,
I'm just not familiar with it.
I worked with the vendor, but Beth, when he came, Beth showed him to the areas. So the library isn't designated an official tornado shelter in the official FEMA.
It is not.
It is not. However, we do have a tornado shelter sign because we can be. We are just not officially designated as such because of our space and our size. And especially now that we're under
Sure.
renovation, we just don't have. But because we are a public building, we open our doors to anyone who may need shelter. So we worked with Sheehan Nagel Hartrey, our architects, to determine the best space. Because right now, or prior, the staff break area was where we would shuffle people in. Because there's no windows, we're on the lowest level. We don't have that space now because we're under construction. So we worked with our architects to find the best space. And the best space right now is if you've been down to the lowest level in the adult services area, the adult services staff are working in the 2 group study rooms that are on the lowest level against the back wall and also the back aisle in that lower level. Those are the best spaces to be should there be a tornado. Now, there are glass panes in those windows. They are already tempered glass. However, they recommended we get this 3M film for extra. It's just taking, out of an abundance of caution to do.
Okay, no, that makes perfect
So,
sense.
and it was at a minimal cost, I think $500 to do it all.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Any questions for Tatiana or Beth? Thank you both. Agenda item 8 is new business. 8A, adopt ordinance 20-01, transfer of funds to special reserve fund. May I have a motion and a second, and then the director will provide a summary.
I move to adopt ordinance 22-01, the transfer of $2.8 million from the corporate fund to the special reserve fund under 75 ILCS 16/40-50.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, and so on June 16th, 2021, if you remember back then, the board updated its special reserve ordinance, and there's a copy in the packet. And in that ordinance, it outlines the $7.7 million project as directed by statute. You have to tell people what we're saving for. So the library has to delineate general categories of a project. So we laid out construction, professional services, the FF&E, that's furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and contingencies related to the project. So with this ordinance in the packet, this one you're about to approve, hopefully, we follow through with that plan to fund the project by transferring funds into the special reserve and then expending those funds as delineated in the special reserve ordinance that you've already approved of. That's that.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you. Chris?
Jenny Norton.
Aye.
Emily Swistak.
Aye.
Karen Larson.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Lorna Turner.
Aye.
Sarah Nguyen.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye. Motion approved. 8B is to approve LLD salary scale for fiscal year 2022-23. May I have a motion and a second, and then the director will provide a summary.
I move to approve the updated LLD salary scale for fiscal year 2022-2023 in accordance with the Illinois minimum wage target for 2025.
A second.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just gonna give a little background for those uninitiated. The library annually adjusts its salary scale to align with market rates for starting pay for each job description. The Personnel and Policy Committee reviewed this draft on April 7th in conjunction with discussions about the director's evaluation. HR Source recommends conducting an adjustment annually, and the library is a member of HR Source. It's a nonprofit employers association that provides human resources and compensation and benefits advice. We use the CPI to adjust the salary scale. It's been approximately 2% every year, but this year the CPI is much higher due to severe economic swings, as you all know. However, we've dependably adjusted this salary scale every year. So the recommendation is to continue with a 2% adjustment for the majority of the pay rates here. We have adjusted the bottom 3 job title rates to reflect the state legislation that provides the path to the $15 an hour minimum wage. So we wanted some elbow room in between the lowest level pay rate, which is the page, up through paraprofessional. So there's a little elbow room there. Saying all that, this does not change the budget that you're about to consider. It is merely to delineate the starting pay and the ceilings for the job titles. The budget was built with this in mind, and you will see and we will discuss the employee costs in general are flat. So that's basically it regarding the salary scale. This would go into effect July 1st. Any questions?
Chris?
Emily Swistak,
Aye.
Sarah Wynn,
Aye.
Karen Larson,
Aye.
Jenny Norton,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan,
Aye.
Lorna Turner,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8C, approve the LLD working budget for fiscal year 2022-23. May I have a motion and a second? And the director will provide a summary.
I move to approve the LLD working budget for fiscal year 2022, 2023.
And I second.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will give background again for those uninitiated with going through the budget process. In creating the budget, I received requests from each department director for materials and equipment and technology. And over the past quarter, the department managers and administration have been reaching out for quotes and estimates so we could create this working document. And we've provided the best estimation based on the vendors, our financial advisors, and staff approximations. The Finance Committee also reviewed this draft on April 25th, and the committee recommended enhancements have been incorporated into the document. And as requested, the spreadsheets show a projected actual column for the remainder of this fiscal year. This draft has also been updated since the Finance Committee, so we've updated the expenditures and revenues through April 30th, whereas the Finance Committee, I think, saw them through March 28th, was it? Beth?
Revenue was the end of March,
Okay.
and expenses were like the middle of April.
Okay, so they're more, you can see the updates there. And then also Sickich does have an accounting recommendation inclusion, and we'll get to that, and that's just in the revenue section, so I'll explain that. It's very small, but we've added it to the revenues. So walking through expenses, under employee costs, salaries and healthcare benefits represent the largest budgeted and actual expenditures in the corporate fund. You can see how it breaks down in the graph. IMRF and FICA are separate funds outside of the corporate fund, but they're included in employee costs overall. The standards say that salaries alone can comprise up to 60% of the budget, and the library shows that salaries comprise 51% of the total budget. Salaries plus the benefits can comprise up to 70% of the budget per ILA, and the library salaries plus benefits comprise 64% of the budget expenses. So we're comfortably within the standards at being at 64%. We employ 51 staff, half of which qualify for health insurance. And our costs, when you talk about employee costs, that includes compensation as well as the minimum wage adjustment. And with all of that, our employee costs, as I've already mentioned, end up being flat. It's primarily due to restructured staffing, retirements, and a reduction in IMRF expenditures due to us being very well funded. We're good there. So under the summary, you can see we have a total budgeted employee cost showing a negligible decrease of 0.17%. So that is employee costs. Under building costs, that's our utilities, maintenance contracts, that's our HVAC, our landscaping, and repair work. And this line, again, remains essentially flat. You see a very small increase of 0.74%. And under operating, this category includes postage and printing and banking fees and processing. And again, this line also remains essentially flat. It is just a negative 0.83% or 0.83%. Under insurance, this line includes our notary bond every 2 years, property damage insurance, workers' compensation. This category does show an increase per the recommendation of LIRA, that's our risk agency, due to increasing cybersecurity insurance, which is not inexpensive. This category also goes by the calendar year and not the fiscal year, so we basically budget for the year, but half of it gets moved back into the prior budget. So you do see an increase of 7.79%. Under contractual costs, this includes our attorney fees, audit costs, outsource IT services as well as payroll. And we are budgeting increases associated with upgrading and redesigning our library website. We budgeted for this every year. We budgeted for last year, and we did not do it. So hopefully this year we will get to it. We're also going to have some IT cybersecurity enhancements and potential outsourced hours connected to technology improvements that may come with the renovation. Now, we're budgeting for this, for some unknowns with technology, but making sure that we have it just in case we need it. So this category shows an increase of basically 12%. Under personnel development, this includes the staff and trustee dues for ILA and ALA expenses, conference attendance, continuing education, and recognition costs such as memorials, and this shows an increase of 64%. We do have people who are interested in going to conferences, and we have someone who's interested in some continuing education, so that's why this category is increased. Moving on to equipment. This includes the Polaris database, technology purchases, minor facility fixtures, and minor repairs. There's a slight increase here due to inflationary costs, just basically for Polaris. So we show an increase of like 1.5% basically. Under library materials, this includes all of our physical materials, our digital content, our interlibrary loan costs, and this line will remain flat. And then under programs, this includes all library programs, our community relations costs, supplies for all those activities, and we do anticipate some increases in programming once the renovation is complete, because once we get into the second half of the calendar year, we should be rounding out our renovation. And the meeting rooms will be open and available, and then we will also include a ribbon cutting event for our open house when we finally open up to the public with our renovation. So we see an increase in costs of 11%. Contingency remains flat. Under restricted, this includes the Illinois per capita grant expenditures, other grants, gifts, and transfers to special reserves. So for the next fiscal, we are budgeting to expend the Lisle donations. This category also shows the transfer from corporate to special and the payment for the debt certificate. So you see a whopping increase of 65, almost 66% there. Under special reserve, these expenses include our capital improvement project and any supplementary facility enhancements. This category budgets for the completion of our renovation project. So you see a decrease of 11% here. So then you will see a pie graph there that shows all of our fiscal 22-23 expenditure categories just for a visual. And then we can move on to revenue. This is where we have a bit of a change. The corporate fund tax levy revenues show a slight increase of 2.06%. The levy was slightly increased using CPI per the renovation project plan. Personal property replacement taxes have increased significantly due to deadline extensions by the state. The district population has increased from 28.5 to 32, with the EAV rising approximately $14 million. And then newly added since the Finance Committee, this is what I was mentioning, Sickage suggests that it's best practice to add the DuPage County aggregate refund. And for us, it was $5,344. So that's why that piece of the revenue increased. And that's why all of this has increased our revenue in this line item. So this aggregate refund, it's hard to explain, and Beth's gonna help me here. This is, we used to receive 1%. That is no longer the case from the county. So the aggregate is, help me, Beth.
It's recognizing that there will be some monies that were paid late And this is the monies that they recognize that we are due.
So we add that into our revenue, and it's obviously a smaller amount than the 1% we always receive.
And it's not just late, but it's also negotiated, where some people ask for a hearing
Less
about their
for- yeah.
taxes.
Right.
So that's another place where it moves or changes.
So Beth was on the call with Sickich, who recommended us including this into our revenue instead of just not, building it into the budget so that we knew what was coming. Interest income has significantly decreased due to the current financial climate. The library's financial advisors have recommended a very conservative estimate here. And the other income category includes desk income such as license sticker renewals and lost material fees. It also includes grant revenue. This category has increased 28.87% due to a budgeted increase in per capita funds and a potential fundraising gain. So the finance committee suggested keeping that in there, so in case in the next fiscal year we wanted to fundraise for something, there was a $5,000 placeholder there. That can change, and in the B&A we can also allow for more expenditures if we were to fundraise for more. There is a Scribner's error in your document. Under the summary, there's a corrected line there. That's been corrected on the public copy, but it should say a total increase of 1.09% versus, I think, the 0.98% there. But that's been corrected on the public copy.
It's on page 49 of your, oh,
Just that summary in bold,
It should be 1.what?
1.09, yes.
So on the spreadsheet, I think it's correct.
It is, yes.
Okay.
It was just on this cover sheet. It was
Gotcha.
just not transferred. Under IMRF revenues, this shows a 2.49 decrease, primarily due to the decrease in the levy for this fund and a decrease in the earned interest on the fund. Everything's earned less interest. We received advice from our advisor on this estimate, and the fund actually has a very healthy balance regardless. So under FICA, this basically remains essentially flat. And then under special reserve, we show a significant decrease due to the depletion of the fund for the renovation project. So it's going to gain less interest, and we are transferring less money into this fund. And then at the end, you see a chart showing the 4 funds, which clearly shows that the corporate fund receives the most revenue, which primarily comes from property taxes. So I know I went very quickly, but the Finance Committee did review this. There was a couple of additional adds there, but outside of that, that's my rundown. Open for questions.
Question for you. On page 53, which is in expenses, and I know I probably asked you this question in our meeting, but just forgot, so bear with me. When it breaks it down by fund, and it shows the budget in 21-22, and then the budget in 22-23, and then the percentage change from 21-22, so it's comparing 22-23 to 21-22.
Yes.
And I'm on the line that says total by fund, and it's minus 25%.
What page are you
53.
Under revenues?
The end of the expenses, right?
Expenses.
Very
By
end.
fund?
The total, this line right here, minus 25.
I'm on a different page.
53.
Yeah, my 53 is not your 53.
The last expenses page.
Oh, the last expenses page.
Yes.
There we are. That's my 51 for some reason. Okay, I'm
So-
sorry.
So my question is, it looks like we're budgeting, I mean, it's a good thing, looks like we're budgeting 25% less in budget year 22-23 compared to what we budgeted in year 21-22. And I'm just I'm just wondering, why is that? And I'm sure it has something to do with the renovation, but I'm just not seeing, I mean, I see where it comes from.
It's actually, today, you transferred 2,800,000. That's the difference in the budgets. That's an expense in the corporate fund, which you can see on page 52, at the very bottom.
Okay.
So this year, we're gonna transfer $30,000.
I'll show you in the corporate fund, on that page 53, you see there's a difference of 2 million from 21-22 to 22-23. That's where you see that big negative 37.95. You see that? That top line corporate, the 6 million to the 4 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, it's small potatoes, but there's a significant change in IMRF funding, expenses.
Special reserve.
I see the numbers, you know, and I can do the math. It's just intuitively, I'm having a problem thinking that, in my mind, we're paying the bulk of our renovation costs in budget year 22-23 or 21-22. I guess that's my question. Maybe I'm not understanding this.
The $5 million, we are budgeting $5 million in 22-23, yes.
And we budgeted special reserve 5.8 last year and 5.2 in the next year.
Mm-hmm. It just shifted over. It didn't.
I guess I'm just, and in corporate, in corporate, we budgeted 6.8 last year, or I just should say the current year, but 4.2 in the future year. So I'm just trying to jive in my mind, why did the budget go from 13 million to 9.7 million?
Because we budgeted to transfer, to expend that 2.8 over this year, which you just did. Next year with the 4, we're budgeting basically just property taxes. We're not budgeting to transfer much more. We're just budgeting to expend property taxes to operate, not to fund capital project. I mean, I'm using very general terms, but we're not budgeting to fund a capital project. We will be paying the debt, we will be putting some aside, but it won't be for a $7.7 million project.
I have a feeling I'm the only one who doesn't understand it, so I will ask you offline. Because I think I'm probably the only one.
The last comment helps me understand that, what you said about last year, we budgeted to expend the 2.8, and next year just be solely
Operating, yeah.
Right.
I mean, is 2.8 what we've written checks for in 21-22?
No. We 2.8 was in our operating reserve, which the board has just approved to move into special reserve. And that's an expense, if you think about it accounting wise, it's an expense.
But if we're, I guess I don't understand why you budget for moving between one fund to another.
That's what.
I have asked that question.
Yes, it's been asked many times, it's best practice to budget that way, it's best practice, best practice accounting wise. Our accountants have told us to do it this way.
One thing that might help is, again, on page 52, you'll see that there's a budget subtotal just above that yellow line, like 1, 2, 3, 4. It says budget subtotal without special reserve transfer.
Right.
And then you can see that the two budget totals, so last year it was 4.3 and this year it's 4.4.
Mm-hmm, very close.
Very close. So the difference is that expense of the transfer. We've asked the auditors, and they said, yes, this is what you do.
Liz, you're not wrong in thinking it looks weird. It looks weird to a layman. It looks weird to a corporate accountant who doesn't do governmental accounting as well. It's a presentation issue.
It's a horse of another
I
color,
think what Beth said last is the best. It's take the transfer out of the picture, and the view of the budget is very similar to last year.
Okay, I'm gonna leave this and say, I have a marketing background and you guys better get this because I don't.
This is the toughest thing in doing the CPA, when you take the CPA exam. Fund accounting, you just never do it unless you work for a
You
government.
hope you don't get
You
those
never
questions
do-
on the exam, frankly.
Yeah.
Unless you're going into it
I
as
mean,
part of your
it's-
practice.
It's so off from everything else that you learn in
Jenny,
accounting.
weren't you the one who told me that it will never balance?
Oh, no, I don't.
Don't worry about it. Remember when I said, but it doesn't?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Balance sheets will balance. Other things
No,
like
I
this
mean-
will not, yeah.
It's an in-out documentation, and that's really simplest way to explain it, that our accountant, our auditor said, you have to document it somewhere, and this is the way to do it.
I'm good with that as long as you guys, you know, it's kind of like a trust thing here. I'm trusting that you guys have my back on this one.
Me too, Liz.
Okay. This is not my forte.
Any questions? Other than that?
Yeah, that,
Comment is thank you for the formatting updates.
You're welcome.
Much appreciated.
Chris, call the roll, please.
Liz Sullivan,
aye.
Lorna Turner,
Aye.
Karen Larson,
Aye.
Jenny Norton,
Aye.
Emily Swistak,
Aye.
Sarah Wynn,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye. Wonderful. Agenda item number 9, opportunity for trustee comments. Shall we move backwards? Trustee Wynn, I gotta look from Karen, so. you're up, Sarah.
Yeah, a lot of information. It was great to hear from Mark. It's great to have the discussion of what's coming up. A lot was said and understood and clarified, so, yeah, I appreciated everything.
Thank you. Trustee Turner?
I'm along the same lines as Sarah. I think that everything's moving smoothly, and I really appreciate Mark's thoroughness in explaining everything. He seems to be on top of everything. And I also express a thank you to Tatiana earlier regarding her staffing. For those who didn't know, the Women's Club had put on a Mother's Day bouquet event last Saturday at the library. And we thought it was supposed to start at 10:30. We were all geared up to start at 10:30, and the line started forming at 9:45. So we were not as organized as I would have liked to have been as far as laying everything out and getting, and I think based on the number of daffodils that I cut that morning, I cut 330 daffodils, and we used all but 6 or 7 of them. And so based on that, some of the bouquets are small. We probably had 35 kids.
35 or 40.
Yeah, we had a lot of kids that came
Went
through.
home with faces for their moms for Mother's Day. And they all posted them on Facebook.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Daffodils and carnations, and we had a lot of filler items, evergreens and bleeding hearts and bluebells and things of that sort. So beautiful day to do it, and the library staff couldn't have been any better. They were right there. constantly coming out, is there anything we can do for you other than another set of hands or something like that? They were just really great about the whole thing, so hope you gave them the feedback back. We were very happy with them.
It was fun. We got more out of it than the kids, though. It was really fun.
Emily?
I just want to say I appreciated going into the library last week and doing the tour of the construction zone. It was just neat to kind of see it and visualize, be in the footprint. So I'm looking forward to when our next one is. Which I know more things will happen before there'll be time, before we get in there again, but I'm looking forward to that. And that's it, that's all I got.
Thank you. Good.
Just a couple of things. Even though we're under a renovation, I cannot believe what a great job the library's doing in serving its patrons. I love these statistic pages. For example, total number of programs. You would expect, like maybe we would have doubled coming out of COVID. We are up year over year 216% in total number of programs and 73% in the number of patrons served. So I do read this, I really appreciate it. And I was one of the people who was trying to get a museum adventure pass. And, you know, they have been difficult in the past to get. And percent change, we are up year over year 177%. So I think it's so great that as a library, and I know you went out of your way to convince these folks to offer us more. So to actually change the program, you know, change the paradigm, ask them, can you do something different? I think that's wonderful. So, you know, for the folks that are saying, hey, you know, why do we need a library? It's because you can see by the numbers, people really appreciate our library, use our library, and all my neighbors are asking me, when is the renovation going to be done? So a lot of people in Lisle love the library.
Thank you. Trustee Norton?
I agree with everything that's been said in terms of appreciation and feeling very positive about our progress. I just want to say I thought that tonight's public comment was really excellent and really appreciate Mr. Webb and whoever was with him on that project to contribute.
Thank you. Trustee Larson?
Thank you. I enjoyed the tour last week, and I appreciate your hard work, Beth's hard work, staff, Mark, everything. I mean, it's like juggling. It's like you're juggling like 1,000 balls in the air. And it's really coming along great. Exciting.
I echo the tour, it was great. And for my simple needs, I have not been interrupted going to the library at all. I do my business. Everything works fine for me, so great. Thank you all very much. Okay.
I move to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have to do a roll call? No.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.